Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. This will be review number 8 or 9 involving these guys if memory serves me correctly, but I think this one it should be quite an interesting beer from them. So this brewery are mainly known for their Belgian styles of beer, but the one that we have today should be considered more Czech originally, and I guess kind of German in this day and age as well, because it's very popular there. But I think it should be quite interesting because this is a style of beer that I've been getting really into again over the last year, and I've been drinking some really nice examples both from here in Scotland during this trip home and from over in Sweden as well. So yeah, for this one we are going to go to the northeast of Scotland once again, to Stonehaven, just a little bit to the south of Aberdeen where I used to study chemistry, and I guess we also have to say Lawrencekirk to the south of Stonehaven as well, because I'm pretty sure that's where the brewery actually is for these guys. But yeah, this is another beer from 6 Degrees North. It's called the Peloton Pilsner. It comes in at 4.1% ABV, and I'm pretty sure you don't need me to tell you what style of beer this one is. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. I bought this beer in my local Morrison's, I think it was, for about £1.75 or something like that, and yeah, I just thought, well, I've not actually seen a Pilsner from these guys before, so I thought this would make for a really interesting review. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was the Whiskey Chopper, if I remember rightly, which was quite a sour low alcohol stout actually, and it was a really surprising beer, that one. I bought that at Valhalla's Goat in Glasgow when I was home last time in February of 2020. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. I've had some really nice examples of lager beers from Sweden over the last year or so, and it's been nice to be home this time and try a few Scottish lager beers as well. We've had the Callista Pils from Overtone in Glasgow, we've had the Sleeper Pils from Fallon Brewing in Kippen near my hometown of Stirling, and I also had the Fierce Pilsner from Fierce Beer in Dice just outside of Aberdeen as well, and all of those were pretty nice actually. I think probably, in fairness, the Sleeper Pils from Fallon was probably the most authentic one, so I'm quite curious to see what approach 6 Degrees North take to this, and fingers crossed it's another good beer. But like I say, I've had some very good beers from these guys over the years. But needless to say, very curious to see how this one turns out. I always am, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from 6 Degrees North before, and you will no doubt see more added onto that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to quite a lot at the moment because I am enjoying a little bit of time at home in the motherland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about 6 Degrees North then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've mentioned to you already, 6 Degrees North are a Belgian style brewery based in Stonehaven, but brewing in Lawrencekirk from what I understand, which you'll find to the south of the city of Aberdeen in Scotland. Very pretty town, really nice kind of cliffside walk there that I do recommend that you go and check out, and they've got Dunnottar Castle there as well, which is a really interesting place to go and visit. But the origins of this brewery go back to the Marine Hotel in the Stonehaven Marina, which is really nice and somewhere that I would like to film an out and about video at, so we'll see about doing that in the future. But basically, the owner of the company and the owner of the Marine Hotel, Robert Lindsay, he spent a lot of time in Belgium and then fell in love with the different Belgian beers, and so he decided that when he came back to Scotland he was going to brew his own. But the main construction of the brewery was undertaken in August of 2012, and then the equipment was delivered over the next few months, and the trial batches were brewed in January of 2013. The commercial brews started a few months later in March of 2013, hence on their bottles they say the foundation date of 6 Degrees North is 2013. But they opened their first pub in Aberdeen in May of 2013, and they've since opened up bars in Edinburgh and Glasgow as well. I've never actually been to the other 6 Degrees North ones, but I do want to film an out and about video in 6 Degrees North in Aberdeen at some stage, because I was there on the first day that it opened, because I was very curious about it because it said Belgian Brewers of Scotland. So yeah, I do remember going in there on the first night that it opened, and let's just say the pavement was moving on the walk home. It was a very, very good night with my friend Grant. All of these pubs stock a vast array of different Belgian bottles that you can try, of course, and they've got a whole variety of their own beers in there as well. Lots of different styles, mainly Belgian styles as I mentioned, but they do have quite a few guest beers on their taps as well. But over the last years they've continued to grow the brewing capacity. They've been changing the designs of their bottles. It seems that every time I review a beer from 6 Degrees North, the bottle designs are a bit different actually. I'm not sure, I think the Chopper Stout was fairly similar to this one, but it was a slightly varied version of the artwork. But yeah, pretty much every time I'm home, 6 Degrees North seem to have rebranded their artwork a little bit, but the beers are still the same from what I gather. I just like to refresh their look quite often. But these guys, in addition to those bars that I mentioned in Edinburgh and Glasgow, they've also got the Dynamo Bar in Dundee, which was apparently funded partially due to crowdfunding. But in January, as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 90 different kinds of beer, and like I say, it is mainly Belgian styles of beer. They've got the Hypocrisy, which if I remember rightly is an IPA. They've got the Old Toon Triple, which is one that I really need to review at some stage as well. The Chopper Stout's quite popular. Wanderlust Wheat, the Four Saisons, I remember was a nice one as well, and I think those are... I've not reviewed the Triple yet actually, I do need to have a look at that, but I would love to see these guys do like a quadrupel at some stage as well. They did have a blonde beer, I forget what the name of the blonde beer was, but yeah, I've had some very, very nice beers from 6 Degrees North over the years, and that will definitely be somewhere that I'll be hitting up when I do get up to Aberdeen. I need to go and film a few places in Aberdeen actually, show you guys where I used to go as a student actually. But yeah, definitely that's all I can really tell you about 6 Degrees North for the moment. Definitely nice to return to these guys once again. I need to film an out and about at the Marine Hotel in Stonehaven, like I said too, but yeah, this one I think should be a really interesting beer. But if you want to learn more about 6 Degrees North, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. Very, very curious about this one. So as you can see, the artwork is quite straightforward in this one. I think it is really quite nice. As I say, they always seem to change it a little bit whenever I review one of their new beers, but it says on the side here, we brew in North East Scotland, 6 degrees north of Brussels, and we're blessed with pure soft water and fields bound with high quality barley. Our beers are unfiltered and carbonated naturally through secondary fermentation. Peloton is a classic Pilsner brewed to style, crisp with noble bitterness, produced using Scottish Pilsner malt and German hops and thyme. Although it did say on the website actually that this beer has Czech Sats in it, or Žatec as they call it. So this one has Tettnang hops in it, which are from Baden-Württemberg in the southwest of Germany. I studied in Heidelberg, of course, and that is they're from not far away from there. And then the Žatec hop, Sats hop, is from the Czech Republic, of course. So this one might have a nice wee bit of both Czech and German character to it. The style, of course, remember, originates from the city of Pilsen. It was created by a German brewer. I want to say, was it 1840 or something like that, or maybe 1860? But Pilsner Urquell is basically the original Pilsner beer, or Plzeňský Prastroj, as the Czechs call it. But it was created by a brewer who I believe was from Bavaria. Wasn't a very nice man. He either died or was kicked out of the city 2 years later, and then the beer has of course been associated with the city of Pilsen ever since, and Pilsner is basically the German name for this city because the Czech Republic was once upon a time part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So yeah, that's a basic history of the Pilsner style of beer. But yeah, you can see the bottle cap on this one is quite nice. I'll probably keep this one because I'm not sure if it is the same as the other ones that I have from 6 Degrees North. But yeah, 4.1% Pilsner beer. This one a little bit lower than I've had from a number of other Pilsners recently. Usually about, I think Pilsner Urquell is about 4.4, so it's definitely not out with that. But I wonder why they've chosen 4.1, because I'm sure the last beer I had from these guys was around 4.1 as well. Normally you associate Belgian beers with being quite heavy in alcohol, but remember this is a German style. But yeah, even so, most of the German ones and the Czech ones tend to sit around 4.5 or 5%, so this is a little bit lower in alcohol, but hopefully that doesn't hinder it. But yeah, I'm curious to see what this Scottish Pilsner malt is like actually. So yeah, fingers crossed this is another good beer, but let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. 330ml bottle, and like I said earlier, I bought this one in my local Morrison's supermarket for I think it was £1.60 £1.75 or £1.80, I forget. But yeah, oh. Yeah, this one, yeah, this has undergone secondary fermentation, absolutely, you can tell just from the head of that. Yeah. So we're going to need to let this just, we're going to need to be careful with this pour actually. Didn't expect this from a Pilsner. In fairness, you can get it, maybe the bottle was just sitting for a little while. But yeah, there we go. There we go, we'll try and get all of it in there, but that head will go down quite rapidly, I would think. It will, because it's not too dense a head, that's going to pop away and fade down. But yeah, that's a crazy head to get out of a Pilsner beer. But yeah, this one I think will be quite interesting. I imagine that knowing 6 Degrees North, this will be a fairly kind of yeasty leaning Pilsner beer actually. But remember, Pilsner Urquell do actually have an unfiltered version that you can only buy in their pub in the city, and it is really damn nice actually. A little bit more like a Munich Helles, to be honest with you. But yeah, you can see a little bit of the kind of yeasty sediment just floating around at the top of this one, come to think of it. Not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera right enough. But yeah, this beer has poured a lovely, it's poured a lovely kind of bright yellow golden straw colour, like kind of similar colour to like a Munich Helles or something. Normally, of course, a lot of people would expect a Pilsner to be clear, and it really doesn't have to be. Most of the German ones tend to be clear, but quite a few of the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more hazy. Czech beer, of course, the main difference between the lager beers from Germany and the Czech Republic are that the Czech ones tend to be a little bit kind of thicker and almost breadier, if you like. But remember, the definition of a lager beer is basically a cold fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast. Essentially, the fermentation takes place at like, I think it's about 10, 11, 12 degrees Celsius, whereas in ales it takes place at around 17, 18 degrees. But yeah, you've got various different types of lager beers. Pilsner, Pilzen, of course, is probably the most popular one. Then you've got different Czech and German analogues. The blonde lager, you've got the Helles, you get a Dortmunder and a Munich variety. In Germany, you've got the Czech Svetli, which is the equivalent of that. Then you've got the amber lagers, the Märzen from Germany. I guess the Vienna lager from Austria can fit into that category as well. Then the Letzak from the Czech Republic. Then you've got the mahogany coloured ones, the more caramelly ones. Dunkel in Germany, Czerny in the Czech Republic. Then the black lagers, the roasty, kind of toasty ones. That's the Schwarzbier in Germany and the Tmavi in the Czech Republic. And you've also got the Doppelbock, which is essentially a very, very strong version of the Dunkel lager beer. You've also got Maibocks as well, which are kind of interesting. But yeah, as you can see, lovely, bright, kind of hazy, golden yellow colour. This one, the head has just faded away now to be about a finger, so I think it's safe to kind of have a proper look at this beer then. But you can see there's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There is a wee bit of the yeast, just yeasty kind of sediment just floating around in this one, but it certainly looks very, very nice actually. So yeah, I like how this beer goes together. I really like how this one goes together in that sense. But yeah, nice looking beer this. One of the more hazy Pilsners you're going to come across, but let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one then. Yeah, okay, I'm just getting a little bit, I don't know why, getting a little bit of a runny nose just now. I think I was about to sneeze just before I started filming, and yeah, I definitely don't have the Rona though, that's a good thing. Pretty sure I got that in Sweden because of the herd immunity policy, but yeah. Straight away with this beer, you can smell that lovely Pilsner malt coming out of this one, absolutely. But it actually smells, this beer really does smell a little bit more kind of Munich Helles like. The Munich Helles compared to the Dortmunder Helles, of course, is definitely more bready. The Dortmunder Helles is a little bit more kind of hoppy, if you like. But this beer, it really would lean a little bit more towards the kind of in a sense, it depends how you want to consider it. It might be more of a kind of Munich Helles, but at the same time it might be a more Czech take on the Pilsner. But they say it's German, so if we're talking about German beers, this one is definitely a little bit more like a Helles in terms of its aroma for me. It's not quite got the, it's more of a bready Pilsner beer, so it is more like a Helles to me than it is a Pilsner beer. Pilsners, of course, I think have got to be a little bit dry and more biscuity. This is definitely a little bit, it's got a wee bit of biscuity quality to it, but it really is more kind of soft and bready rather than anything else. But yeah, the aroma out of this one, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, lovely soft white bready character to it. It's got a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty wholemeal type quality to it as well. which is quite nice. You've also got a good little bit of how would you say? You've also got a good little bit of what would we say? You've got a good little bit of there is a wee tiny little bit of that McVitie's digestive sort of thing in this one, but the malty base in this one is very, very pleasant actually. Soft white bread, a little bit of bread crust, just a wee touch of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing in there, and the yeast has a good presence to it as well. I think it is very, very nice actually. So big thumbs up to 6 degrees north of the malt base on this one. You guys know that I like taking a proper look at the malt base in these beers. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it is pretty much what you'd expect. You've got a little bit of that soft kind of noble earthiness in there from the Tettnang hops and the Czech Satz hops, depending on which ones are in it. We might be able to tell from the flavour. But yeah, you've got a nice little bit of herbal quality there, quite a bright floral aromaticity, and at the same time you've got quite a deep grassiness to this one as well. So from the aroma, I would say, I do think that probably both types of hops are in this one, because it does have a bit of that kind of almost very slightly spicy note that you would expect to the Czech Satz. There's a very slight spice to this one, but I would say the Tettnang, the notes that I would associate with the Tettnang hops, the deeper aromaticity and bright and sort of grassiness that you get out of this beer, those are the Tettnang hops, I think, that are giving you that. So I think the Tettnang hops dominate in this one. The Czech Satz might not even be in there, but yeah, you can smell that slightly deeper grassiness to it. So if I had to bet between one of the two, I would bet on Tettnang hops. I mean, although it's quite difficult to tell the difference between Hallertau and Tettnang, it could also be Hallertau. But it said on the website that this had Jatets Satz hops from the Czech Republic, and it also had German Tettnang in it. So we'll take what the website says. But yeah, nice kind of bright grassiness to it. A good little bit of floral aromaticity, and I think overall it just goes together very, very nicely. In terms of the, how would we say, yeah, in terms of the, yeah, definitely, in terms of the kind of fruity side of things, I would say that this beer, it has that nice kind of perry, that kind of soft perry ester to it as well, which is very nice. There's a good little bit of a grassy kind of citrusy quality in there, so a little bit of an appley perry sort of thing. A nice kind of soft, maybe a teeny little bit of like a very soft apricot, something like that. There's a tiny little bit of that in here. But yeah, soft apricot, little bit of a kind of perry, appley sort of thing, and then a wee bit of a kind of almost lemony quality to the grassy side of this beer. So that's quite interesting as well. My runny nose is annoying me now. But yeah, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. It does come across a little bit like a kind of Munich Helles, but it does have a wee bit of a kind of yeasty quality to it, so maybe that's supposed to be a little bit of a Belgian touch almost, because Belgian beer is all about the yeast in my mind. But yeah, let's have a little taste of this beer then and see how we got on. This one is the Peloton Pilsner. Peloton, incidentally, is basically a formation of riders in a bike race. I had to look that up before doing the video because I was like, what the hell is a Peloton? There you go, learning new English words every day, which is great. But yeah, let's have a look at this beer and see how we got on. The Peloton Pilsner, 4.1% ABV, from 6 degrees north in Stonehaven and Lawrencekirk, I guess we should say, in Aberdeenshire, in the northeast of Scotland. I think Lawrencekirk might be in Tayside right enough, or Angus. But yeah, let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. That's a nice beer, that, yeah. It's definitely, it's almost like a kind of Belgian take on the Pilsner beer, to be honest with you. It's got quite a wee bit of carbonation to it. This one, maybe this bottle in particular, has been sitting a little bit. There is a wee bit of sediment just at the bottom of this beer, so I would say that it's a tiny touch, just slightly over carbonated, but when you use bottle fermentation, you're kind of always going to get that, and you buy at your own risk when you go out the supermarkets rather than a little bottle shop, I guess. But yeah, that doesn't really affect the beer overly much. Me being picky, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is almost like a kind of Belgian take on a Pilsner beer, or on a Munich Helles, or a Czech, a Czech Svetli, should we say. And it's interesting because it certainly has some of the crispness and a slight dryness that you would expect of the Pilsner, because for me, that's what defines the Pilsner, is that little bit of crispness and dryness that it has. And you definitely get that out of this beer, but this one has quite a big bready component to it as well from the yeast, and it is definitely more yeasty than malty, if that makes sense. You can tell just with the way the flavours are coming out. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? So straight away across the middle of your palate you can feel that sort of crispness from the Pilsner malt there. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that you do start to get a softer, more kind of crisp white bready note from it, and I think that is the yeast, but probably the malt will also play a role in that. So it does have a soft kind of white bready-ish character to it as well, which is very, very nice. So yeah, the middle of your palate on this one is quite interesting. In the very centre of your palate you do get a wee tiny touch of, I hesitate to say honey, but it's a little bit like a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. It's not quite as grainy as a biscuit though, but it's the same level of sweetness as that, almost, I think the kind of syrupy stuff they put into those biscuits to hold them together, if that makes sense. The sweetness that you get out of this beer in the middle of your palate is very much like a McVitie's digestive biscuity there, and it's just a little bit oily in the very centre of your palate. But yeah, if you move towards the back of that middle third of your tongue and into that border region with the back third of your tongue, there's definitely some of that nice pilsnery dryness there. But if you go on to the back third of your palate, you can feel there's just a thicker breadiness in there, and this beer, you know, it really has a slightly thicker. You can get the yeast out of it. I think, is there a bit of wheat in this? Does it tell you? I would wonder. No, there's no wheat in this. That's all the yeast then. It's all the yeast that's giving you that, because it does have just that really thick and almost very smooth white bready character at the very back of the palate, on that back third of your tongue. It's almost got a little bit of bitiness to it, kind of similar to like the wheaty bitiness you would find in like a New England IPA or something like that. It's almost like a slightly peppery spice almost. So yeah, that's a really interesting point to make about this one. The back third of the palate is pretty, you know, kind of thick on this one, to be honest with you. So I really like that about how this beer goes together. I like that it's got something a little bit unique about it. It is like a Belgian take on the Pilsner, but at the same time you've got that Scottish cleanliness to it as well because of the water. I always say this about Scottish beers, and some of the ones that you get from north back over in Sweden, and the Norwegian beers and the Icelandic beers were always the same. You can feel the kind of minerals in the water. It just feels very, very clean, and you get that with this beer as well. Absolutely. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together. It's definitely a beer, when you take it in, you're a little bit like, but then it really grows on you once you kind of get into it a little bit more. And if you know the brewery, you can kind of appreciate what they're going for here. So it's definitely a very yeasty take on the Pilsner beer. And you could argue that it's a little bit Czech. You could argue that it's a little bit sort of Czech Svetli-like, and you could also argue that it's a little bit Munich Helles-like. So yeah, it's interesting, this one. So yeah, I do like how this beer pieces everything together, let's just say that. So yeah, this is awesome, this one. This really, the malty side of this one is pretty awesome. I would certainly not hesitate to drink this beer again. I'd love to try it on tap though. I'd love to try it in one of the bars and just see if it gets how it is when it's a little bit smoother. I think it's very slightly over carbonated. I think if this beer were a little bit smoother, it would turn out to just be even better. But yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this beer, I think, works together very, very well. So thumbs up to Peloton. This one is very nice. It actually does remind me a little bit of the Fierce Pilsner that I had. It's not a million miles away from that, come to think of it. So yeah, interesting beer, this one, for sure. But yes, hoppy side of things then. On the hoppy side of things, it is pretty much what you'd expect. Back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, it's a wee touch herbal. There is some nice kind of floral aromaticity towards the kind of front corners of the palate. It's got a wee touch of spiciness there as well, which makes me wonder, are there Czech Žatec hops in here? But it does have that deeper floral aromaticity to it, which is characteristic of the Tettnanger hops. But you've also got a nice little bit of a lighter sort of grassy thing to this beer as well, which I really like. But yeah, the flavour, you know, the flavour of the hops in this one, the green component is very nice. You actually get a good little bit of zestiness off the grassy part around the front curve of your tongue as well, which is good. But yeah, on that front third of your palate, as I always say, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. As you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, there is a wee bit of a kind of almost peppery, grainy sort of quality to it, which I quite like. So yeah, it does have just a wee bit of bitiness behind the fruity side of things, which is quite nice. But then yeah, as you move further forward, there's a wee bit of a darker kind of lemony citrus at the back of that front third of your tongue, but quickly it becomes more apricot-y. Like there is just a wee bit of a soft apricot-y kind of thing there, but then quickly, pardon me again, you start to get some almost peary type esters out of it, and as you reach the kind of front part of your tongue, you get a real lemony, zesty note out of this one. It does become really lemony and zesty, and that, pardon me, mixes quite well with the kind of grassy zest that the beer has as well. So yeah, this is a very interesting one. As I said earlier, I would stick to that sort of hypothesis, or whatever you want to call it, that this beer is like a slightly more yeasty take on a Pilsner beer. It's basically just it's yeah, you could call it a Belgian take on the Pilsner beer if you wanted, but yeah, definitely a very yeasty type Pilsner. It does remind me of the Fierce Pilsner that I reviewed a few videos back actually. So yeah, this is a really interesting one for me. And I guess the one thing about a lot of these clearer Pilsners we have to think about too is a lot of them would be unfiltered, and this one is definitely not unfiltered. It's definitely not filtered. Double negative. But yeah, definitely, this one is definitely unfiltered, for sure. But yeah, lovely looking beer, this one, I have to say. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like how this one goes together, and I would love to try it on tap, as I said. But yeah, I think that's the flavour profile covered quite comprehensively in this one, let's just say. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say? So this beer is quite, it's definitely quite sort of smooth, and I would say that it's quite a smooth mouthfeel to this one. It does have a degree of crispness to it as well, but I would describe this beer as being at the bottom end of mid-bodied. Carbonation does have a little bit of bite to it, this one, but I think it's slightly over-carbonated because of the bottle conditioning. The, yeah, it's got a little bit of a, how would you say it? It's got a little touch of a it's got a little bit of dryness to it, this beer as well, which is quite nice. So it's quite smooth, at the same time it's quite dry, and it just has that crispness, which is really interesting. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this beer is maybe about 25 IBUs, something like that. At the same time, there's a wee bit of the dryness and spice that kind of almost adds to the effect, if you like. So yeah, I think about 25 IBUs for this one. It's not going to blow the head off you in terms of its bitterness. The malty side of things, very nice and smooth. It's got a little bit of bitiness to it, like I said, and just a tiny little touch of sweetness. But the yeasty notes really give it a lot of bite too, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I very much like how the malty and yeasty side of this beer goes together. The fruity side of the beer for me, quite zesty actually. It really has a little bit of a zesty bite to it, which is quite a nice variant on the Pilsner, actually, I guess you could say. So yeah, this is a really quite quirky beer in my mind, and I certainly like how it does its thing. So thumbs up to 6 Degrees North for this one. This is a very interesting beer from quite a few different angles, if you like. So yeah, I think that sums up the mouthfeel quite nicely, to be honest with you, so we can leave it there for this review. But yeah, the Peloton Pilsner, 4.1% ABV from 6 Degrees North, a really interesting one, a very yeasty take on the Pilsner style beer, this one. A little bit like a Munich Helles, but a wee bit like a kind of Czech Svetli at the same time. But as I say, you can get quite a few hazy Pilsners, unfiltered ones like this, in the Czech Republic. So yeah, that's definitely worth bearing in mind. But yeah, let's leave it there for this one. Curious to hear what you guys think about this beer as well, and I do want to try it on tap, as I said. So yeah, future out and about reviews at the Marine Hotel in Stonehaven, and also in the 6 Degrees North bar in Aberdeen. I'd love to get Brew Bob. He was always known as Brew Bob. I'd love to get him on a Meet the Brewery interview at some stage as well. That would be really fun to do. So we'll see about doing that. That could be very nice. It'd be nice to get the guys from Fierce as well, actually, come to think of it. So fingers crossed we can arrange that at some point. But in the meantime, this was the Peloton Pilsner, 4.1% ABV from 6 Degrees North, based in Stonehaven, just to the south of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland. Awesome to get these guys back on the channel, and fingers crossed we can get something reviewed again from them in February or in September. We'll see about doing that. But yeah, thanks again for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from 6 Degrees North. We will return to these guys very soon, I'm sure, on the next cycle of Scottish beer reviews. And in the meantime, make sure you check out some of their beers. Wanderlust Wheat, 4 Saisons, the Old Town Triple, and you know, Hypocrisy and the Chopper Stout. They're all very nice beers. Just have a go at something from these guys and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But until the next time, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, and catch you guys very soon. The Peloton Pilsner from 6 Degrees North in Stonehaven in Aberdeenshire in Scotland. Cheers.